Welcome to HR.com Live. This podcast is produced by HR.com, the #1 destination to help 1.7 million HR executives maximize human potential and drive extraordinary business results.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to HR.com Live. My name is Dr. Patti Fletcher, and I'm the Chief Equity Advocate and HR Disruptor here at HR.com. And I'm on a mission to disrupt the business of people at every level and every function of the workplace. And lucky you, I'm your host today. In this episode, we're going to be talking to my good friend, James Sinclair, about alumni returnship programs. Have you heard of them? It's the real solution, according to James, to the labor shortage. And I think what he's saying is there is no labor shortage, right? We just might be looking in all the wrong places. James is the co-founder and CEO of EnterpriseAlumni, the market-leading alumni and retiree engagement platform that enables large organizations to create meaningful and lasting relationships with their former employees. James is also an in-demand strategist and speaker within the HR innovation and change management field. And boy, do we need smart people there. So fantastic guy to talk to about this. And having spent his career with companies like IBM, SAP, and EDS, he focused on driving innovation and change management for Fortune 1000 companies. James, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Patty.
So let's jump right in. You're always talking about returnships and alumni and boomerangs. What are you talking about?
So I think we hear that quite a lot. You know, people hear about alumni, Accenture alumni, McKinsey alumni, but don't really understand what it means. Some people think it's just essentially a little coffee shop online for people to high five and reminisce about the good old days. But the reality is that the leading organizations are recognizing they're spending a tremendous investment on recruiting, even more an investment on keeping those people, experience, quality of life, training, learning, and they leave and they're like, well, good luck then with the rest of your life. Yeah. And the innovative companies are saying, why wouldn't we maintain a relationship? The best possible outcome is you leave, you get new skills, go to a new company, make new friends, get new perspective, get diversity of opinion, and you're going to bring that back to a company that you once worked for and execute that. And I think that's what we're seeing the market suddenly start realizing.
Yeah, and you know, there's a cost to this too, right? It's something like it costs 200% to replace someone when they leave, and then, like you were saying, right, there's the onboarding component, the time to value, where somebody who has a history and some institutional knowledge in those relationships, well, there's got to be some money sense in this. So when it comes to the money piece, what's HR's role in that, and are they movers in this?
So I think HR is taking a very kind of financial centric role of recognizing, I mean, there's a lot of people that need that business case of show me the money of where the value is. And I think there's the really obvious ones, which is someone who comes back to your organization is going to be quicker because they know where to park, they know how to log into the VPN, they know the awkward system with the elevators, they know all the bits and pieces, but they also know all the stuff that all companies have in their closet, all those hidden secrets. So when someone chooses to come back, not only is their time to productivity better, their effectiveness is better because they've decided, they know with everything they know about your company to walk back in and bring that in. So you start to see time to productivity, time to fill, the amount of time they stay, effectiveness as just key indicators. Yeah, and I think that's the easy business case is, look, if you can fill your jobs quicker with more qualified people that are going to be more effective quicker, well, there's your business case. Can we just stop there? But what we're seeing a lot of companies suddenly realize is actually there's more than that. There's the advocates out there. There's the spreading of our message, just more people out there kind of preaching that we're a great company. And so we start to see that also impact referrals. So we see someone say, hey, as an alumni, I'm not looking to come back to this company, but I know a great person who would be a great fit. And instead of shipping them through the careers website, what about making that introduction? And so we're starting to see HR really take an intelligent kind of perspective of we need to rethink everything kind of from step one.
So interesting. You know, I'm listening to you and going, gosh, when I think about how it used to be, and I know in some cases it still is, when someone leaves a company, which they usually leave their boss, not a company, but when someone leaves to go move somewhere else, it feels like a divorce. It's like all ties are broken. And I love what you just said, right? The exit that someone leaves, let's consider that just part of another onboarding process where there are no hurt feelings. The relationship just might look different for a little time being. But, you know, it also brings me to the Okay, so how do we even get in touch with these alumni? Like, are we keeping in touch with them? How do we even know if they're going to take our call if we reach back out to them? What does that look like in this new world?
So I think there's kind of two perspectives. Number one is already happening. Go to Facebook, go to LinkedIn, you will find thousands of LinkedIn groups for companies where someone left the company 12 years ago, started a LinkedIn group, and now there's 80,000 members or 2,000 members or 12 members. The point being is your alumni already kind of congregating, and whether that is 4 people going for beers and playing golf all the way to larger groups on LinkedIn. Your alumni want this, and if you provide an easy path for them to come back or to gain a meaningful experience with your organization, they want to. I mean, the data is in that it's more than just high fives again over cocktail hour, that this isn't just a, hey, we are opening up a new recruiting method and we're going to email these people and say, hey, do you want to come work for us? No, it's about saying, hey, there should be a relationship for life. And maybe as part of that relationship, you might come back and work for us. Maybe part of that relationship is you refer someone. Maybe part of that relationship is we can help you learn or extend and we can provide you value. And I think that's where we see kind of this recognition of as people move quicker through their kind of cycles of employment, you have to have and maintain that investment for life.
You really do. And it does truly benefit the person who leaves as well. I think of my own former employers, and like that blood still kind of runs through my vein. And I still keep in touch with my friends. Some of these relationships transcend time, and it would be wonderful to have that kind of, quite frankly, easy interactions and ongoing interactions with these companies. And it's weird because a lot of times now when you leave a company, or most times when you leave a company, you're not part of that experience anymore, right? That brand experience, right, from the customer's perspective or the employee brand. And, you did talk about technology, and we talk a lot about that. You have a technology company. So can you talk a little bit about this whole concept about, so is the employee experience part of the alumni experience? Does that fall under? How do we use technology? Should we be leading with technology or asking ourselves different questions when it comes to keeping these folks who aren't necessarily on your payroll anymore engaged, so that there is a seamless kind of on-ramp after the off-ramp?
Yeah, I mean, they've left. They've chosen to leave, or we chose for them to leave. They're traitors or whatever it might be. And you're absolutely welcome to have that approach. But the reality is you are going to find yourself in a competitively difficult situation going forward, because modern companies who are reimagining the employee experience are saying, actually, we have to look at every touch point we can have and every value point we can have. I mean, there's a great, I'm going to attribute it to the wrong person potentially, but I think I heard it from the CHRO of Starbucks, who essentially said every single human on earth is an advocate or a customer first. You may also be an employee. You may also be a past employee. You may also be a recruit, a vendor, a partner. You may be any of those things, but you are a customer/advocate before you are anything else. And so I think that's a really interesting way of considering the conversation of just because you're employed in the company, it doesn't change your position to be able to drive business, do business, or refer business, or again, that recruitment conversation. And again, whether I've attributed the quote to the right person, I don't think any company can really argue that. And what we see from companies is, and my awful way I think about it, it's like washing your hands after you go to the bathroom. You know all the value, you should absolutely do it, but not everybody does it. And that's sometimes how alumni is kind of looked at. And so it's trying to recognize what is that gap of why should they, even though everyone knows they should, but why don't they? And some people will look at it and say, well, resource, burden on time, who's going to run it? How are we going to deal with these people? What happens if they say stuff about us? And there's a lot of opinions about that, which is if they're going to say something bad about you, don't you want them to say it in your platform versus publicly? But the second view is that's what moderation, that's what controls, and that's what software does. It prevents all of those bits and pieces. And a good system shouldn't be led by resources. It should be led by the technology. And essentially the resources get to focus on strategy and execution and value versus administration and Excel spreadsheets. And that's why you move to the cloud, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. And spreadsheets and all that really don't make for a good experience. So I
Right.
love that. So you just kind of blew my mind a little bit with the whole concept. And I've heard it before. We've all heard it before about everybody's your customer. But the way that you put it is it requires such a disruption in mindset when you think like that, because you never want your relationships with a customer to end, even if they're not actively buying from you, because you want them to come back someday. And if they are there, you want to keep them there, right? And so when I think about the alumni status quo. Obviously, what you're saying is we need to disrupt how we believe that alumni fit in, what we do about it, and keeping them kind of under our umbrella. Can you talk a little bit more about, I've heard you say like Alumni 3.0. Can you talk a little bit more about what it means to not just have basically be your daddy's alumni, right? I mean, this is something totally different. And what are some companies doing things a little different to still keep people in the family even when they've left the company?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really kind of important perspective from us, because when we looked at this market and we saw there are some companies that do, they have an online portal with an address book and with some news and with some bits and pieces and some conversations. But the reality is when they started 12 years ago, LinkedIn didn't exist. So they needed to have an online address book. You know, the way we consume news was different. So they needed to have a central portal. But those are not the ways you engage people anymore. And when you think about an alumni community, you could have 5 generations of people in there, everyone from an intern to a retiree. And every one of those people is going to have a different experience or different view of what a meaningful experience means. And so Alumni 3.0 to us is creating contextual, meaningful, valuable relationships with the people and making sure each experience is slightly different. You can't log into a platform and see all the same things. Some people will care about mentoring, some people about discounts, but you start to see companies say, well, what else can we do? So there's a bank in New York that allows their alumni to join their team in the New York City Marathon and will match donations. Like when you think about that in a wider perspective, you could have a perspective of why, what value does that do? That's just a cost center. But then you have another bank in the UK who's focused on learning that you can actually come back as an alumni and take in-person classes on leadership, sustainability, CSR, and they just had one about leaning into women empowerment and women returnship programs. I mean, you're starting to see companies say, actually, this is more than just, can I get more people to recruit? This is a broader conversation. And so it does require HR to kind of get out of their own bubble a little bit. If you're only thinking about your own performance and your own QBRs, then you're kind of trapped in the how many recruits am I going to get? And when am I going to get them and how quickly? And yes, the platform delivers for many of our customers between 400 to 4,000 recruits a year. But there's this wider conversation of actually, what is the value of delivering this meaningful experience? What is the value of making sure you, Patti, have a really good relationship with your ex-employer, whatever that means to you?
Yeah, it's just so part of that conversation of, hey, HR, cost savings and time efficiencies aren't cutting it anymore, right? You have to move beyond that. And this is just right on. And I love that HSBC example. I think it was HSBC that you gave around the continuing education for free for people who don't even work there anymore. I mean, that is totally beyond the scope, as you said, right? The 4 walls of the organization, and really saying, hey, we have a role here to play as a member of society in upskilling the overall talent. I mean, that's huge. And guess what happens? If I go to you and you give me valuable education that helps me, chances are I'm going to go back to you and use that education to your benefit. Phenomenal. And like you said, of course I'm going to be a brand ambassador, whether I work there or not. It's so simple, James, and yet so outside the box, but also so why haven't we done this before, right? I mean, it's just crazy. So as we end this, I would love some kind of pragmatic steps for the folks watching and listening in. What's a good call to action when it comes to having alumni be part of your whole talent strategy and practices?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think the first is, this isn't a drain on resources. This is part of the fact you've already made investments into your HR infrastructure, to your company-wide infrastructure. This is the last step of the employee experience. The goodbye step is no longer the goodbye, it's see you later. I mean, there's that quote from another customer that when someone leaves, they say, good luck with your offsite training, we'll see you back here soon. And what you're starting to see with that company, even with the learning, is this rising tide. Essentially, look, we do better when everyone does better. And you're starting to see companies take a social responsibility towards that. So the parting message to everyone is, it's not difficult. You just have to start somewhere. And I think the value can easily be qualified by whatever you think the value is. It's not on me as the organization to say, this is what's important to you. I can show you the numbers, the results, the amazing impact it's having. But it's for you to then look at that data and say, you know what, this is an area we could really benefit from. And that's an area that could really make sense for us. And then for everything, we just believe start small. Let success be the momentum of growth. Let success in the project be the driver of growth. Either the product does what it says on the tin and crushes it for you, or it doesn't. And we're very happy to say that it does for our customers. And that's what matters, is being a good partner to them, not just a good software solution to them.
But that's what HR really is as well, right? Being a partner to their counterparts around the business and taking that. I mean, it's a really good example of in HR, maybe you do that, right? Like you were just talking about with Enterprise Alumni. Let's try this and see if it works, because guess what? What doesn't work, you can probably address anyway, right? So it's
right.
And everything changes. And just one last thing before we close out that I want to call out to folks. One thing that James talked about that really hit me is that we're starting to understand that we need to move away from a mindset of cradle to grave, right? And people don't stay in companies long. God, the average CHRO is only in place for 18 to 36 months or something, right? Very rare are people here forever. And yet our practices of everything, including when people leave, is very much we see them once and then that's it. Right. And we only have them for a short period of time. And so the experience, unfortunately, reflects that. And we need to change that view from a start and an end to a continuous that takes different forms. James, thank you so much. You just gave me 15,000 things to think about, which means I want to have you back on the podcast. And also, I believe you're going to be talking with my colleague, Brad Sutton, in an upcoming podcast. So please, viewers, take a look out for that. But James, thank you for taking the time to share your experience, your expertise, your insights with us. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And don't forget to check out our archived episodes on HR.com. We release new episodes every day so that you can stay up to date on all things HR. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day. I'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to HR.com Live. We have new episodes daily to help you maximize your potential. Be sure to check out our archives on HR.com and share it with your friends. Cheers.